Hi, I'm Tammy from soullove.com. I'm here in Toronto to interview author of The Love Mindset, Vironika Tugaleva. I'm sure you will love her book as much as I do. It's a very, very special book, and I'm really looking forward to this interview today. Hi, I'm Tammy. I'm here in the beautiful city of Toronto at Allen Gardens with author of The Love Mindset, Vironika Tugaleva. We're here to discuss her new book and her work. And it's really just such a pleasure to meet you today. I've been really excited about it. I read your book. I absolutely loved it. In fact, my new name that I actually picked for you is Angel, because I just think that you are just like a gift from the heavens, really, with all of the just the beautiful words that flow from you and the infinite wisdom that comes from you is just unbelievable. I was telling you earlier that when I was going through your book, I don't think there was one page that I didn't have those aha moments where I thought, wow, I can relate to that. I've been through that. I remember that years ago. I even remember that weeks ago, some of the stuff. And it still surfaces. There's still some things that happen no matter what stage you're at in your life. And I'm just so grateful to have this time to sit and chat with you about it. It's really nice. You write in the preface of your book, if someone would have told me several years ago that I would be writing a book about love, more so as a spiritual one, I would have taken it as a joke. And I even feel that way about my life. 3 years ago, I think if somebody ever told me that I would be reading these books, that I would have taken it as a joke. But it's just amazing how fast your life can change. So can you share a little bit about what your life was like, and what the situation was before you came, into this book?
Yeah, it was different. It was different, and I really would have taken it as a joke. Like love. I didn't believe in love, first of all. Right. I thought that it was just something that people told themselves was real, and I thought, because I'd been through some destructive relationships, and I thought that love was just total pain and sort of a dependence. So I had some problems with addiction and with eating disorders. And to me, love was just another addiction, right. And that was just a way that people became addicted to one another, as opposed to these substances that you can put inside of yourself, that they just, used each other like that. And, I was very cynical in that way, so you can pick up the cynicism. Mm-hmm. But I think mostly it was just this self-hatred, just this total self-hatred about everything, and it didn't matter what was going on the outside. Mm-hmm. I would kind of get myself home and give it to myself worse. So, as I also say in the preface of the book, I was just leading on this abusive relationship with myself. Mm-hmm. So as it inevitably happens, I would run into trauma, and I would run into problems, and I'd run into broken relationships, or people would reject me, and especially being an immigrant and not speaking the language, it was sort of difficult.
So you didn't speak English when you came to Canada?
No. Well, I spoke a little bit. I was like cat, dog, yes, no, but it doesn't get you very far.
Right.
And so things would happen, and I would sort of get myself by myself. After things would happen, it would sort of flog myself for it later. And so it didn't matter what happened. Life just got worse and worse and worse, and I couldn't find any peace. And every single time that I was by myself, there was this abusive relationship that flowered. So as you can imagine, I would run into the arms of every vice and into the embrace of strangers, and I just kept running from myself. And I tried to put on this mask. I mean, you were even saying at first that, just how I look, like I'm just really natural now. But before it was, everything about me was unnatural. The way I dress, like my hair, my face. And you just can't do that forever.
Right.
You just can't put on a mask forever.
Right. Like what was really profound for me when I first heard about you was the fact that your breakthrough or your awakening happened when you were 23 years old. Mm-hmm. Most people might have it at 43. Like it took me that long, and I remember being really angry.
It's funny, and I always say this, that with the same passion that I sort of go spreading love in the world and, speaking and writing. And as you were saying, the book only came out December 1st, and I'm just, everything's going so quickly now. So with that same passion that I'm must spread this message, must help people, must awaken people, must inspire people. that was the same. I've always had that passion, but I was just using it to destroy myself.
Right.
Right. So I just came to this point. It was sort of 10 years coming. I came to this point when I could really go no lower. And right before that, so for about 6 months before that, I went to the doctor and they said that I was having adrenal problems, actually. So I remember actually 6 months before my breakdown, which, we're going to call it a breakthrough now. But I was standing in front of the mirror and I was trying to wipe my makeup off from underneath my eyes, and it wasn't wiping off. Right. And I was like, oh, the black circles aren't going away. So what had happened is, I guess I had adrenal exhaustion. Like, my adrenal glands had just blown up because I was so stressful on myself. I think I had like 3 jobs, and I was going to school, and I was doing drugs, and I was starving myself, and I was smoking, and I was drinking. Like, I was doing just everything you could possibly do to your body. So what happens, like, when your adrenals turn off is that you just don't have a stress response anymore. So it was like everything that I'd been blocking up, those 6 months leading up to the breakdown, everything went really fast. So I had some undealt with trauma, like sexual trauma, and all of the flashbacks just started coming back. And then I started hearing voices, like in the middle of the day. I would just hear these voices coming from the inside of my head. It was like screaming, and I started thinking about death, like every day, a lot of the time. And the subway train would be coming, and I would think about jumping in front of it, and it was really strange. And I had a friend who had committed suicide, and on like the 1-year anniversary of her death, it was like February 8th, actually, I remember that, about 2 years ago. And then those thoughts just went into hyperdrive. I'm like, why did she do this? Why did she do this? How did she come to do this? And I think it was somewhere by the end of March that I had the breakdown, because it was just cycling all the time, and there was just no quiet in my head at all. It was just screaming out all the time. And somewhere in the middle of that, I think I had decided to quit smoking because I was like, oh, that's the problem, I'll quit smoking, because I was taking like a CBT class, and that didn't work, and it actually brought everything forth even more. So it was like I tried to get rid of the cigarettes, and then there were all the other vices that just started pushing in. And I just remember I ended up on my bedroom floor. And the way that I ended up on my bedroom floor, and I don't usually tell this part of the story, but I was just with some people, and I was sitting there with them, and they kept offering me things. They're like, hey, do you want a drink? Hey, do you want a cigarette? Hey, do you want a line? Hey, do you want this? And it was really sudden. I was like, no. It was the strangest feeling. I just thought, I don't need anything right now. I need to go. And there was just this revulsion at the smoke in the air and the environment and the grungy walls. And I went home, I went to my room, and I just sat there on the floor, and I realized, oh my God, I have to change, or I have to die. I think this is not, I can't keep going like this. I just can't. And so I contemplated there. It was like Hamlet. I really just contemplated, like, okay, if I die, then there's no pain, so that'll be pretty cool. But if I live, then I don't know what's going to happen. And will the voices stop? Like, if I live, what if it gets a lot worse? What if I have to deal with this trauma? What if I have to relive all of this? What if, just what if, and this and that? And I really thought it out. And obviously woke up the next morning. And the thing that really changed my life, I think, the thing that began the transformation, was that I woke up in the morning and I went to the mirror and I looked at myself, and I was about to start putting makeup on, and I looked at myself in the eye, and there was this realization that it wasn't my face that was making me hate it. It was my thought process about my face. And I realized, oh my God, the problem is not my face. I can't fix the problem by fixing my face. I hate myself. That's the problem.
Wow.
So I have to work on that.
Yeah.
And that's been huge. It's been a long transformation. I think it's only been like 4 or 5 months, especially while I've been really public about this message, since I've been not thinking those things about myself. So even while I was writing The Love Mindset, I was like, who would ever want to read this book? It's a trashy book. It's a horrible book. Nobody wants to read this book. There was just all this hatred of the book, of myself, of everything. And it was almost like this spiritual vomit, like I had to get it out. It all had to come out. And now that it's out, I'm just like in love with myself and in love with you and, with the world.
So beautiful. And you feel it even being around you. You just kind of radiate it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And as you're even saying that about yourself, I'm sitting here looking at how beautiful your blue eyes are. It's like, how can anyone hate themselves that much, But I remember going through it myself. I remember the first time that I looked at myself in the mirror when I was going through my transformation. I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time. Into my eyes, though. I wasn't looking at my physical body. And I realized that I was 43 years old and I had never really looked in my eyes. With how many times a day are we, we're in front of the mirror brushing our teeth, brushing our hair, doing all that stuff, but we never really look into our souls. And I was the same as you, I loved what I was seeing. I loved who I was on the inside for the first time. And it does make you kind of fall in love with everything else.
Yeah,
right?
it really does.
No, it's so beautiful. I love that. That was a really, really profound part of your story for me. So I'm going to go through a couple chapters of your book because I could talk about every chapter. I loved everyone, and I really find, like, since with some of the groups that I'm involved with, one of the questions that a lot of people always ask is, how do you learn to live with your mind? Because a lot of times you'll hear people in the spiritual world say, you got to get out of your mind, you're a spirit, you're not your body. And that's fine. I understand, and most people understand that when we die, our consciousness goes back to the one, consciousness, and our spirits live on. But right here, right now, we have to live with our minds, our bodies, and then the whole package, right? So how do you, what do you recommend to your clients and the people that you help with this?
Any tyrant, if the tyrant is just a tyrant, if they're just a bully, right, that's all they're going to be to you. You only feel about them the way that they're treating you. And the mind is sort of like this. If your mind is just a tyrant, and that's all it does to you, it just bullies you around, then you can't, right? But if your mind's a friend, when you've got a friend, then every single friend has, skills and strengths and things that it can do. As I say in the book, I'm very much pro-mind. I think that the mind has its place.
Me too.
Yeah,
I really am. Yeah.
It really does. It has its place. And I mean, I come from just a background of being really successful, like in the academic world.
Right.
And I was like a chubby Eastern European child. I didn't have any friends. I had a tendency for my face to go too red. Like I didn't really have anything else to go on. I had these really high grades and I would get these awards, and so I was like, oh, my mind is good. It's good. It's a good part of me. I was friends with it, or so I thought.
Right.
But what I was actually doing is I was identifying with it, and I was letting it rule my life, and I was letting it into parts of my life, like, okay, should I heal this trauma that has happened to me? And mind's like, no. Because the mind just does like a cost-benefit analysis. Like, okay, the pain is going to hurt, and it actually might kill you, so let's not do that. Right? And so that's the tyrant part. And what I really encourage people to do is become friends with your mind and use it for what it's meant to be used for. Like the mind, it got us here, right? However it is that we traveled here, you give it a destination, you get it to come. But when it comes to matters like healing and happiness and connecting with people, and even leadership, anything to do with that, the mind usually doesn't actually know what to do. So we have to sort of train it to allow us to switch to something else. So there are parts that should just be a spiritual experience, but you need to get the mind on your side, right? And so that's really what the love mindset is. It's like, you breathe with your nose and you eat with your mouth, but you don't really, right? You breathe with your lungs and you eat with your digestive system. It just comes in through the nose. It comes in through the mouth. And so that's how everything spiritual comes in first through the mind. You can't experience oneness if your mind doesn't sort of fall open and let you do it. And only a friend is going to be like, okay, you know what, show me what you've got, show me what's going on. So some of the things I get people to do is, I talk to my mind all the time. Like if I'm having anxiety, or if it's like angry or something like that is happening, then I just ask it. I'm like, okay, so what's going on? What is happening? What am I reacting to? Right? Because usually, our feelings are a byproduct of our thoughts. Right? But the question is, are our thoughts true? And is your mind on your side with trying to figure out whether or not those thoughts are true? Right? Because if I'm like, if I have a thought, there's a saber-toothed tiger right in front of me, I feel fear, and good, I'm going to run from it.
Yes, yeah. There's some places where fear is good. It kind of protects you, right? There's a little bit of a protection in there. But
and the thought, so that thought is true. There actually is a saber-tooth tiger in front of me. But if I think something like these people are going to reject me and they hate me and I'm worthless, also feel fear, but that thought's just not true.
Right.
Right. And the only way that we can actually use our minds and have this integrated system is if your mind is capable of questioning itself.
Right.
And that's something that a tyrant, a dictator won't do. A dictator will just do whatever it wants to do. Right? So that's the relationship with your mind. There's sort of this give and take, back and forth. If you feel like you're having anxiety, send your mind to bed. That's what I teach a lot of my clients. I'm like, dear mind, you've done a really good job today. List to it all the things it's done right.
Right.
Like you've gotten me here. You've got me up in the morning. You checked Google Maps for me. Thank you for that. Yeah. And now, if you could just step aside, I'm going to do my thing. Thank you. And it will. Really, it does. And it does that even for people with the worst anxiety.
Yeah.
The mind's just overloaded.
Yes.
And it's just like this office worker, and you keep piling things on top of the desk, and it'll never say no. The mind will never be like, oh, I can't do it.
Right.
It's a little stubborn in that way. So as long as you keep piling things on, it'll keep trying to do it. So the solution is just lift the load. Be like, you know what, take a break. It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to make everybody like us always be right.
And a lot of it is being in the moment with everything, right? Not worrying about what someone's going to think about what you're doing or what you have to do tomorrow or what you did yesterday, forgetting all of that. So I find that's really takes a lot of pressure off my mind. When I start to feel anxiety in any way, I remind myself that right here, right now, there's nothing that's harming me or hurting me, or so it feels like it just kind of clears. Those are great. This chapter really got to the heart of our strong desire for love and how we're always, we don't even realize that we have that desire, but we're just chasing it and looking for it outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's amazing once you're aware of how often you do that. And everybody does it seems. Like once you're aware of it too, you can start seeing in other people around you, So can you talk to me a little bit about triggers?
I can actually start off by just sharing, just yesterday, my partner and I, we went to go see a show downtown. And I remember telling him, I guess the hockey playoffs are happening right now, and you just got this room of people, and they just, I guess somebody gets a goal, and they're all just cheering, and just really into it. And I remember saying to him, I was like, that's about love, That's not just about hockey. It's not the game, right? It's like you fall for something that makes you open up and feel connected. Right. And these people have found an extremely effective way to open up and feel connected. Right. Because when they're there and they're cheering for their favorite team, they're just totally connected. They're just totally blossomed. They're open, right? And so if you don't have a way of finding that feeling, you're going to find it in some sort of other way. Right. It's like our lives are simply this process of feeling connected to everything and being totally isolated in our minds. And most people constantly shift between one and the other, right? And then when they do shift into this oneness, they don't call it by the awareness. They don't call it by, oh, I'm experiencing what's actually there, right? Nobody does that. If I'm here with you and I'm experiencing that oneness, then what most people would say is, I'm in love with you, not I'm in love, or I'm feeling, I'm experiencing something.
We name it something different every time.
Exactly.
How you describe it,
Yeah, and depending on who you are and where you've come from, you will just, you will find the most effective and the most immediate way of getting that fix. And, as I said, I had a lot of drug problems beforehand, and drugs would get me there, it would get me there.
Food
eating,
for some people.
and eating, like the eating disorders. So being able to control my eating, it got me there. I'm not really sure how now, because now I'm like, okay, I'm in it when I'm taking care of my body and being good to it. But there was something about the process of feeling in control of myself that made me feel like I was sort of flowing, that, everything was happening. And so we continue to call it something different, but we're just accessing ourselves. Every single time that somebody's sitting across from somebody else saying, I love you, they're really saying, you help me relax enough to just experience myself, to just experience what's going on. Right. And, every heroin junkie, every CEO that keeps thirsting for the money, they're all just wanting that feeling. Right. The same way that, when we want to eat food, we're looking for the feeling of a full stomach. It's sort of the feeling of the full heart. And most people don't know that they can access that on their own, right? So if we want full lungs, we'll just breathe. If we want a full stomach, we'll go get food. But if we want a full heart, we start grasping for the triggers, not really knowing where they are or how to get them. And that's really the problematic part, right? And that's how we get all these addictions, because we don't know how to get it on our own. We don't know how to get it without the trigger.
Yeah, that was very powerful. I suffered from an eating disorder as well, for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And it was the same when I was finally recovered from it. When I thought back, it was really about control.
Once I hit rock bottom, right, it was like there was nothing else that I could do but take responsibility for it, right? And that's sort of the thing that I run into all the time, right? So how do you get a person to transfer from this sort of I'm going to keep waiting for miracles to happen to me to I'm going to take charge of myself? And it's funny because there's like the love mindset, and I can help somebody establish the love mindset, but then there's like the mindset about the love mindset, right? So it's like, whose responsibility is it to make sure that I get love?
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things, I've just found I really can't. And the same that I talk about with the triggers, I'm like, it's not outside of you, it's inside of you.
Right.
I actually have found, and it's been the most relieving thing, I'm like, I can't convince people that they're responsible for their own personal experience of love. So often when people come to me, because I get a lot of requests to work with me, and I honor like a very small fraction of them, and it's just that, when people come to me and they're like, oh, I can still see them believing in experts and authorities. They call me a guru, they want me to teach them the thing. I sort of tell them to look harder. I tell them to look more, because I'm like, once you're willing to, work with me and make magic happen, to take charge, like nobody else, it's just you, right? It's just you. I'm going to help you do it, but it's just you, right? Nobody else can do this for you. If they've got that mindset, then magic happens. And oh my God, every time I see that magic, it's beautiful. And for so long, especially when I first started working with people, I couldn't find the right things to say. I couldn't find the right things to do. I just couldn't, no matter what I said, no matter what I did, they just couldn't break out of this mindset of constantly searching outside of themselves. And then I realized, like, oh my God, that has to happen inside of yourself too, right? And it's been a huge relief too, right? Because I was questioning my abilities as like a people helper, but I'm like, you know what, that actually proves everything that the book is about, right? It proves that it is inside of you, and the decision to find out that it's inside of you is also inside of you. Right.
And really, I agree with you, magic does happen when you finally take responsibility, because it took me a while to even come to that point, because right away I wanted to find more books to read, and I was looking for the next guru who was going to teach me something new and show me how to do it. And I even noticed that a lot of people, like new people that will come into the groups, the first question that they'll come out with is, how do I love myself? Can somebody tell me how? And it's one of the, like, I'm always amazed when I see that question, and you see a lot of people try, to give advice, but you're right. Once you turn the responsibility onto yourself, it just seems like everything opens up and beautiful things start pouring into your life. I mean, like you're sitting here now talking about your book, your first book. It's amazing, right? And I'm actually here with you. Like, I feel so blessed that I'm even doing this now. It's something I never ever imagined I would do, and it's all because I turned the responsibility onto myself, and I started looking inside and finding everything I needed inside of me. We'll talk about the guru thing, because I found that really interesting about you. When I first went on your website, and you talk a lot about how you don't need another guru or another self-help book to do all of this, and you refer to yourself as a different kind of spiritual teacher. So tell us what makes your book and your work and your message so different from all the other books that you find out there, because there's so many of them. So how is yours different?
Well, it's different from books about love, because usually books about love are all about tips and tricks on how to get it from somebody else. So it's not like that, because it's about finding it in yourself. But it's also different from a lot of books about spirituality, because it's not about, the angels, the crystals, all this stuff. It's about finding it in yourself. And it's funny because recently I've I've just stopped calling myself a spiritual teacher, because I found that just as much as, so I would call myself sort of a love teacher before, and then a lot of people kept being kept sort of pressing the spiritual thing. And they're like, no, you are talking about spirituality. The book's about spirituality. You're teaching spirituality.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'll be a spiritual teacher. And then I ended up in communities full of people that I didn't really relate to.
Right.
And now I'm just going to say people helper. And I think at every single turn, we've just got this antiquated business model. And the antiquated business model is that you sell independence and you breed dependence. So you tell people that they can do it on their own if they buy your product, if they buy this report, which leads to this and then leads to this, and you can't do it without those things, right? And I think that this sort of thing, I mean, it works if, say you're, trying to run like a plumbing company, and somebody sells you, a report about how to get more customers, and then they sell you another thing on how to make those customers stay. It works within that model, right? But it actually doesn't work in healing. It doesn't work in happiness when you're constantly throwing these self-help products at people, saying you can do it on your own with this thing that I've got to offer you, right? And so I'm always kind of running into this problem, because the way that business is supposed to work, the way that as somebody in the self-help field, I'm supposed to create clients for life or consumers for life, and many of the people that I work with, that I have worked with, I hear from them. I like send them a message on their birthday. I'll check in with them every single once in a while. They don't buy from me again. Sometimes, they'll get one of my meditations, maybe they'll like take one of my workshops or my classes, but there's not this sort of escalating, give me more and more and more money, give me more and more and more of your time.
Right.
And I think that's sort of what the entire field has become now. And so I find myself treading through that at every moment, and sort of amazed at how people are willing to throw so much money at something simply to avoid looking at themselves. Right. And sometimes it does take that, sometimes it takes the $5,000 retreat and you go away and you've heard something enough times to realize, oh yes, it's just me. It's just about me. It's not about this and this and this and this and this. But I think there's something profoundly dangerous going on where we're trying to take this very kind of Eastern message of healing, of happiness, and we're trying to put it into the Western capitalist world. And people I call it expert addiction. People everywhere have an expert addiction, right? And they don't see
it's just a new addiction.
Exactly. And even when like I tell people, if you're going to work with me, I would really like to be the last coach you ever work with. That would really make me happy. At least like the last, like healing, self-love, happiness coach. Maybe you'll get a coach for, your fitness, or a coach for your business. But I want to be the last person that helps you love yourself. Because if you need someone else, then I haven't done my job.
Right.
And that's been interesting. It's been very interesting, because I feel like I go against the grain of how our economy works.
Right.
I go against the grain of just established norms in how we're supposed to work with each other on this kind of thing, sort of the way that the entire field works. And but I think that our economy's changing. I think people are waking up, especially young people are just not as willing to take orders from authorities anymore, and to have their strength, their beauty, their power taken away from them and then sold back. And I think that over time it'll just become easier for people like me to make a difference and get to people's hearts without having to without convincing people that they can't do it.
The last chapter of your book was about gratitude, and I feel it when I'm around you. I see it when I watch videos of you, and you can just tell that you are so grateful for the change that's happened in your life and how beautiful things are for you today. And I wondered if there's any daily little routines that you do, or just little things like I was saying that my feet don't hit the floor in the morning without just even saying out loud, thank you. And I don't even know who I'm saying it to. I'm just saying it to the universe. I just feel so happy when I wake up, and I feel like I can take on whatever lies before me during the day. So is there anything that you do every day, or is it just part of who you are now?
Well, it's kind of both. So every single day I make sure that I connect with myself in the mirror at least once a day.
Oh, beautiful.
And sometimes I ask myself, especially if I'm not feeling good, I'll ask myself, like, am I being honest? Are you being honest with yourself?
Right.
I just make sure to make that connection. I make a connection with my body every day. I make sure that I I work out or do yoga every day. I take myself for a walk. Yeah, just all of that. I make sure that I do that. Some form of meditation, and sometimes it's different. Meditation isn't always about sitting on the floor going like this.
Yes.
It's just about training your mind to think in a different way. So sometimes when I find my mind just rolling along, then I'll kind of come in and I'll be like, well, is that really true? Like, is that really going on? Are you looking at the entire situation the same way that you could be? I kind of have a conversation with my mind every day about at least something, especially if I start reacting emotionally to it. I do have a partner that I love very much, and with him and we have these rituals sort of together of bonding and being with each other, and I find that I can explore myself through him and him through myself, and it just makes me stronger for the world. So you can see how, and I do my work every day, and as I was saying, I've always got a backpack with me. People always ask me if I'm in school because I'm just carting my laptop around, and I have this huge presence on social media, and I work with my clients online, and I write a lot, and I just take myself into the world, and I'll be sitting in a coffee shop, just writing, or it just brings me to life, and I try to have lots of radio shows and stuff that I do, and that helps me connect to people all over the world. So I have all these things set up so that my days flow with this constant connection to me, to the people that I'm close to the world, and I just try to ask myself to what do I need? What do I need right now? Because sometimes I go through hard times emotionally, and then those days are different, and it takes a lot to be you know what, this is a signal.
So you still have setbacks?
Oh, of course, and have harsh emotions, and so does Deepak Chopra and Oprah.
Yes,
don't get me wrong,
of
course they do.
Yeah.
But you just start to deal with it in a different way, and that's where the gratitude comes from. It's you know what, even if I'm really angry with somebody, that person is now my teacher. I will now learn about myself from this situation.
Right.
And I really do that. If something's really getting under my skin, I will just look at every single little part of it.
Right.
I'll be like, what is it that's really upsetting me? Why am I being triggered? Not why did he do that?
Exactly.
Why am I being triggered?
Exactly.
And I grow just exponentially every time somebody upsets me.
Yeah.
And in a way, I enjoy it.
Yeah. No, it's true. There's a lot of blessings in all of that, and that part of gratitude was I found, and you talked a lot about it, about how it's important to go back and look at all of the darkness in your life, and the trauma that people go through, and see it in a different light.
Exactly.
See that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was. I mean, it wasn't fun at the time that you were going through it, but you can see the gift in it and how it brought you to where you are today.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't be here if all those things hadn't happened, and especially with the people that have hurt me. I would not be here if it wasn't for them, and I wouldn't be able to learn about being compassionate if I hadn't forgiven them. So.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for this today. This was a real blessing for me to have the chance to come and sit with you in person and feel your energy. You have such a beautiful energy, and it's so much different than when you're on Skype with people back and forth. You can really be together. So thank you very much. I want to hug you. It was beautiful. You're such a sweetheart.
Oh, thank you. You can find me on my website. That's www.vironika.org. That's VIRONIKA.org. All about the book on thelovemindset.com, just the title.com. And you can get a free preview of it, the first 30 pages. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Google+, I'm everywhere. I'm on Tumblr too, so find me on there.